Hello, everyone. My name is Nataliya Berbyuk Lindström, and together with my colleagues, Dina, Miroslav, Wilhelm, and Ola, we have a project, Understanding and Overcoming Communication Challenges in Metrics Delivery. It is a collaboration between Axel and Ericsson. And in spring 2, this is actually our second sprint, we had a great pleasure in collaboration with Axel, Franke, and Helmut Bange from Bosch. We also had contact with Grundfos and with Volvo. And today I'm going to update you about what we have done and what we're planning to do in the next sprint. So as you can guess, the vision of our project is to understand and improve communication between Metrics team members and stakeholders. Communication is important for everyone in daily activities, and it's also important for organizations. It can support and supports the building of effective working relationships between people and organization, between stakeholders, team members, between employees and managers. It helps people to feel engaged and committed to their work tasks. It helps people to develop trust each other, which is essential for productivity and actually for feeling good working with others. And it's also very essential and fundamental to the successful adaptation of agile way of working, which is common in both Axel, Ericsson, and in Bosch. That's why in this project, we would like to learn more what works and what doesn't work in communication between metrics teams and stakeholders. So this is our research question. What are the challenges that metrics team experience when communicating with stakeholders? We were approached by the team members and the team leaders from both companies asking for initiation of this project. And today I'm going to share you some results. In sprint 1, we conducted a number of interviews with both metrics teams and stakeholders in both organizations. In Axis, we conducted 15 audio recordings, 8 with metrics team members, with team leaders, 3 team leaders, and 4 stakeholders. It's a relatively new metrics team, especially compared to the more established metrics team in Ericsson. In Ericsson, we used field notes for interviews with metrics team members and team leaders, and we had somewhat more stakeholders in Ericsson than in Axis. Compared to Axis, Ericsson has international stakeholders in Hungary and in China, for example. So we had some stakeholders were not in Sweden. To analyze our data, we transcribed all the recordings and field notes, and we used data analysis program and Vivo, and we adopted a thematic content analysis to get some idea what are the main challenges experienced in communication. In sprint 2, we continued our data collection. We had more discussion with team leaders from both companies. We also presented our findings at 2 workshops, one with Axis, one with Ericsson, and we invited both the team members and the stakeholders who were involved in sprint 1. But we also included people, if they were interested to join, we asked them to join. The people who are not involved in sprint 1. In this case, we had a chance to discuss our findings with our respondents to get their feedback. In addition, we were involved in 2 workshops and presented our findings. for other companies. The workshops were organized by Bosch. There were 2 workshops. One KPI workshop was in October, another one in November. And we shared our findings about communication. I also got feedback from the participants. And it helped us to get a broader understanding, a deeper understanding of our findings. And we could kind of get some kind of validation of our results. Our framework for data analysis, because now when we have so much data, and it's really great, it's amazing that we could get so much data, so good data, in spite of the pandemic situation, that we couldn't travel and we couldn't, unfortunately, meet the participants face to face. We really appreciate that they could contribute with their time and energy and interest to our project. So now we're analyzing the data and drafting an article. The framework we are using is called activity theory. Basically, we need to understand communication in relation to the social activity in which communication is used. Communication is a tool, and in order to understand how it works, maybe it doesn't work, you need to understand the context. So in this case, you need to understand what is the purpose of this activity? What is the purpose of communication between metrics team and stakeholder? Second, you need to understand what people and their relationships are involved in this communication. What are their roles? What are the competencies? What are the right obligations, and what leadership and management aspects are involved? Next, you need to understand the product they're developing. What are they doing together? Why do you need a stakeholder to meet metrics team and ask for something? What is the reason for that? And people also today tend to communicate using different communication channels. For example, face-to-face communication and mediated communication. If you cannot meet face-to-face, which is, again, unfortunately, is less and less common right now, you need to use email, phone calls, video conferences, etc. as mediated communication. And of course, the choice of communication channels influences communication immensely. And finally, you need to think about the environment. What environment the communication takes place. Physical environment, psychological environment, if it's much stress, for example, time pressure, if people are sitting in different parts of the country, far away from each other, which makes it impossible to, for example, to meet if they sitting in different countries and experience different time zones, then of course it can become increasingly challenging. So this is in a nutshell how we think about communication. We relate it to the context. And in our research, we related activity theory to a specific activity, measurement process model. And I'm aware of the fact that there are different models. We just took this to start with. So we look at the measurement process model and we relate our findings to different activities of this process. And at this point, our findings show that the majority of challenges are related to preparing for measurement, performing for measurement, and evaluation measurement. As well as some challenges, communication challenges, are related to the whole metrics measurement process delivery. In a nutshell, in our data, we identified 3 time-bound themes and 1 transversal theme. Time-bound themes means that the challenges occur in certain periods, in certain activities of measurement process, such as prepare for measurement, perform measurement, or evaluate measurement. Transversal means that this challenge is common throughout the process. And we have actually 3 time-bound themes. It's aligning expectations between metrics team and stakeholders, handling competing demands. They are common for prepare for measurement and perform for measurement activities. And evaluate for measurement is characterized as a challenge in relation to relaying metrics use feedback. Transversal theme, which is a challenge throughout the process, is maintaining continuous dialogue between metrics team and stakeholder. And now I'm going to talk briefly about each theme and give some examples from our data. Yeah, just to note that some challenges, because we have 2 organizations, are common for Ericsson. Other challenges are common for Axis. I'll just mention which is here on the table. A is for Ericsson only and B for Axis only. So what happens during prepare for measurement and perform measurement activities? 2 main challenges: aligning expectations when metrics team and stakeholder, when they meet each other and work on during measurement process, and second, handling competing demands. To start with aligning expectations, we find 3 sub-themes. Interpretation of metrics is one of them, and it's common for both organizations. What we can see as we are researchers outside the organizations, we could see that it's quite difficult for both metrics teams and stakeholders to interpret metrics, to have a shared understanding about metrics, what metrics is needed. Sometimes it's very difficult to explain what is meant. You need time spent on it, and sometimes you cannot really understand what expectation the stakeholder has, what kind of metrics the stakeholder needs. And this clarity is very difficult to achieve because sometimes the terms are different, metrics is called different names, and sometimes it's difficult for stakeholder to specify what he or she needs, which makes metrics team unsure, okay, what exactly do you want us to get? Second, in both organizations, there is a challenge in defining metric stakeholders. Communication depends on who is in front of you. If it's a primary metric stakeholder, is it a consumer? What kind of expectations they have? So of course depends who needs metrics and what kind of request it is. And in some cases, it was quite difficult for metrics team to find out, okay, what kind of information this person requires. And in relation to that, both metrics team and stakeholders mentioned that they were unsure about the purpose and the roles of metrics teams and stakeholder communication. In some cases, it was difficult to understand what metrics is needed, and stakeholders, both organizations, they mentioned that they prepared for the meetings with the metrics team in order to explain what metrics they need. However, other stakeholders, they kind of mentioned, and they were clear about that, it's not our role to formulate the request in this way. Metrics team should guess what we need. They should have the competence to understand us. However, it was quite difficult for metrics team to grasp what exactly the stakeholder needs. So in a nutshell, purpose, roles, and responsibilities in combination with difficulties with interpretation of metrics result that it's kind of difficult to align expectations and difficult to get a shared understanding, okay, what kind of request it is, what information you need. Another challenge was handling competing demands. And in both organizations, there were challenges with priorities. In Ericsson, multiple stakeholders were involved, and in some cases it was difficult for metrics team to prioritize. It could happen that a person was working on one task and the stakeholder comes and says, no, you need to stop doing this, start doing that. And in some cases it caused much disruption and stress for metrics team members to get from one project to another. In Ericsson, one of the challenges was the challenge in defining priorities between metrics team, stakeholders, and management. There were many discussions about planning a work with metrics team. It's a relatively new established team, and it's a bit unclear what responsibilities the team has, the scope of their work, and there is a pressure on following the roadmaps. However, in many cases, very difficult to estimate how much time it takes to deliver metrics due to its complexity and also due to challenges in communication with stakeholders that you need to understand what metrics actually is needed. So in relation to roadmaps, it can cause additional stress metrics team and actually hampers innovation and development. Finally, the final time-bound theme is related to evaluate measurement activity. In some cases, stakeholders and metrics team, they have a feedback how metrics is used in product development. And many metrics team members appreciated that. They could see the results of their work. However, in other cases, there was a stop there, that you delivered metrics and that's it. And partially due to time pressure, partially due to the fact that kind of arena for this kind of discussions is missing. But some metrics team members mentioned that they would learn more about communication with stakeholders. They would be able to understand their stakeholders better if they have some insight how metrics is used in product development. And in relation to use of metrics, some metrics team members commented that in their organization there is little knowledge and understanding about the use of metrics and the use of KPIs. This we discussed a lot during KPI workshops with the Bosch from Axel, Ericsson, and other organizations, that how to create metrics culture in organization, how to create KPI culture that, as one of participants mentioned here, that people are afraid in some cases to measure stuff. How can we use KPIs wisely? How can we use metrics in organization? And this comment was mentioned by some metrics team members as it would be useful for them to be involved in creating this metrics team culture, and many of them are willing to do that. And finally, the challenge, which is common during the whole measurement process, is maintaining continuous dialogue. Basically, that metrics team members and their stakeholders, that they communicate with each other throughout the process, that they keep track what is happening, that they give feedback to each other. Unfortunately, due to geographical dispersion, it's sometimes very difficult. Sometimes it's actually quite impossible, which hampers their work, because all metrics team members mentioned that the best communication channel is face-to-face communication, sitting together and looking at the graphs and getting this shared understanding together. However, sitting in different buildings and sitting in different countries makes it quite difficult to handle that. So that's why creates problems with understanding that it's difficult to manage. And finally, cultural differences. It was mentioned, this issue was mentioned in Ericsson because in Axis they don't have international stakeholders at this point. But in Ericsson, challenges in, for example, getting tickets in Jira late afternoon due to time differences. It can be an urgent ticket, creates stress and anxiety. And secondly, how you formulate short tickets. It's kind of short communication in English, and sometimes language challenges can be quite difficult, to manage, that you don't really understand each other and you need to send tickets back and forth to find out what is meant to make the right decision. So it takes time, and in combination with the time differences can be quite challenging. So finally, how to mitigate communication challenges. Here we have a short first overview, but we believe that in the heart of the process is active participation, that keeping contact, continuous dialogue can help metrics team members and stakeholders communicate better. Defining purpose and task, as well as clarifying roles and responsibilities, seems to be a good thing to do, because in spite of the fact that we have read many articles, much literature in the area of stakeholder and their roles, rights, and responsibilities, in the workshops, we realized that not everyone is aware of that. Neither stakeholders nor metrics team members. And I think it can be quite helpful to manage that, and it can help to make communication better. Then, of course, managing expectations, that you should have better understanding of metrics. And we do hope we can learn more about metrics and do more in the area of communicating metrics, how to communicate metrics in the best way, in order to improve measurement process. And it's also essential to build rapport, to have feedback to each other. In addition to that, in both organizations, maybe I think more for Axis, one metrics team is a relatively new team, it is necessary to cultivate metrics culture. Why is metrics needed? Why are KPIs needed? What is the purpose of using metrics? It still seems to be a question for metrics team in both companies. And in addition to that, in the workshops, there was discussion about cultivating the culture of no blame, because sometimes you have metrics we can show that the results are not so good, and it can actually make people feel bad. And in this case, that sometimes you actually need not only show that something doesn't work, but actually that something works very well. So we put it here, celebrate win, to lift up that metrics is a tool to help people to develop, not to blame anyone. And regular communication. In many cases in the workshops, people told us that we were working on very hard on delivering metrics. And after many hours without communication with stakeholders, we found out that we did something that was not what the stakeholder expected. And it can help regular communication to build confidence, knowing that I'm on the right track, and also helping to create common ground between a team and a stakeholder, which can help also develop practices for further contacts in other projects. In Sprint 3, first of all, we are currently working on the articles, so we hope we will share it with you soon. In Sprint 3, we would like to go further and implement action research interventions in collaboration with our industrial partners. We have discussed possibilities with Axis, Ericsson, and with Bosch. In Axis, we plan to focus on a small but critical work activity, in relation to enhancing conditions for shared understanding, which is what we understand that the company representatives think is essential. So in all our sprints, we actually ask companies, what do you want us to do, first of all, and then we negotiate, put it in a scientific context. In Ericsson, at this point, we plan to make an intervention that target initial dialoguing between the metrics team with the aim to facilitate shared understanding regarding what metrics to develop and what purpose it will serve. So we are currently discussing what exactly we want to do, what kind of metrics we'll look at. And with Bosch, we agreed to have a workshop about the findings of sprint 1 and 3, and together with the company representatives, we will discuss in detail what information can be useful for Bosch and what information we can provide that they can use in their activities. So if you have any questions, please drop me a line to my colleagues, Miroslav, Wilhelm, Dina, or Ola. And I hope you will soon read the article and we will tell you more about the results of Sprint 3 for the next workshop. Thank you.